Thanks a lot.
All right, that's it.
All right.
It's good that you're watching the time. That was helpful. Letting us know that we only have a minute and a half.
Can you not see it?
Yes, is it?
I can see it.
You should
Yeah,
be
I
able
have
to
the
see it.
timer up there.
Oh, or says less than a minute?
Yeah.
All right, this is episode 57, and today we are talking about stock trading by government employees, why the dollar is so strong, and we have more lightning round questions at the end. The Wall Street Journal ran a big article highlighting the fact that more than 2,600 government officials reported owning or trading stock that stood to rise or fall with decisions their agencies made. Alex, do you think the Wall Street Journal is making this sound like a bigger issue than it is, and what, if anything, should be done about it?
So I don't think that anybody should really be surprised by this. I mean, you go back to the earliest writing, Sumer, ancient Egypt, and, you hear people getting rich off of partnerships they have, government officials getting rich off partnerships they have with what we would now call the private sector. So I don't think anybody should really be surprised by this. Obviously, this is not a problem unique to the United States. You'll probably never be able to get rid of this issue completely, unless you somehow, some way abolish government forever, which I think is equally as unlikely as getting rid of graft and corruption. But I don't necessarily think that the Wall Street Journal is making too big a deal of it. People should be aware that their elected officials and bureaucrats and other public officials are doing this. But like I said, I don't think there's a whole lot shocking about it. I think in general, the public likes the idea that their government officials are working for the benefit of the public, not for the benefit of themselves. And I think it was you, Tom, that mentioned, one possible way to get around this or minimize it is to have government officials, all their investments have to be tied up in a TSP, which is the government's retirement plan, for those who don't know. That certainly won't prevent all graft and corruption, but I think in general, the public likes the idea of putting as many speed bumps in the road to graft and corruption as possible. So once again, not a big shocker. Is it a huge deal? Probably not. Is it a problem? Probably. Hopefully somebody will look into this and do something about it, especially the general public. So
I don't think the Wall Street Journal is making it sound like a bigger issue than it is. I think it kind of is a big issue. Granted, compared to other things, it might not be that big of a thing. It's kind of like a gateway drug. It's a gateway abuse of power. Let's put it that way. They may be, caught with a gram of marijuana. They're not distributing pounds of cocaine, but I think what they're trying to do is to enforce the standards. I think it's a big issue whenever you don't enforce the standards placed on those that should be held to the highest standards. And I think if you're an elected official, or not even elected official, I think this has to do more with just government employees. You should be held to a higher standard than those that you're governing, period. James Madison has one of his quotes, and I'll paraphrase, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. And if angels were to govern men, no controls on government would be necessary. But we all know men aren't angels, so there must be some sort of checks and balances. And I think the Wall Street Journal is kind of just, kind of poking that idea a little bit. If the government isn't going to hold itself to higher standards than those it's governing, what's the point? And what's the point of all this? Right now, government officials, when it comes to trading stocks and buying securities, they're required to abide by the 2012 Stock Act. And I think we talked about this in another podcast. And I mentioned the 2012 Stock Act is an absolute joke. Basically, it requires government officials to disclose their stock transactions within a 30 to 45 day window. And if they're found to violate this, they can be fined up to $200 American dollars. That's almost $300. So prior to 2012, government officials could trade stocks on the companies in which their committees controlled, which, to everyone's surprise, Turned out that was a bit of a conflict of interest, and the government officials abused their powers for their own financial gain. Like no one saw that one coming. So no, I don't think the abuse of powers, no matter big or small, I think it should be taken seriously, and I think it should be put in check whenever it's discovered. I think that's what the Wall Street Journal is doing right now. And if not, if we don't keep it in check, I think we're just going to see more abuses of powers in the government, and I don't like that.
America seems to have a strong sense of fair play. We respect when people play by the rules, and we get frustrated and irritated, and sometimes we become revolutionary when we perceive that people are not playing by the rules. To Alex's point, we shouldn't be surprised. The reason why people are doing this is because that's where the money is. And people will gravitate to areas where large sums of money can be made with compartmentalized special information that's not available to the rest of the public. We ought to do something about it. I just don't believe that America has the enthusiasm to do what is necessary to change the ethics protocols of Congress. Everybody hates lawyers, but they love their own lawyer. Everybody hates car salesmen, but they tend to love their own. And it's the same has to go with congressmen and so on forward. And we're not even talking about congressmen here. We're talking about a lot of these are government, these are executive appointees by the president, or they're civil servants who have risen through the ranks and quite frankly, probably have belonged to the federal in unions over the years. It's extremely difficult to get rid of some of these players because they're unionized. So the question is that should they be doing it? The answer is no. The question is, do we have the resolve to do anything about it? I don't think we do.
You're right. This is just a piggyback article on what we talked about a while ago on congressional members violating the Stock Act. And now we're looking at non-elected officials basically doing similar things. And I'm just going to basically resurrect my comments from our last conversation and say that if you're in any type of position where you have the ability to affect a stock's performance based on your decision, all of your investable assets should be tied up in the government's thrift savings plan system or some version of it. Right now, the government's TSP is basically like the government version of a 401k. If they want to expand that to have brokerage accounts and personal IRA accounts for government employees and congressional members, that's fine with me, but they should only be allowed to invest in the letter funds. And then that way, I think it solves lots of problems, that you still get to participate in the market. It makes sure your incentives align with American citizens, and that if you're only long broad U.S. markets, that's you'd want to see the economy go well. So that aligns you with the interests of everybody else, and prevents you from making decisions or trading on decisions that you make that nobody else is privy to that information. So I think it is a big deal, and I think anybody who's in those 2,600 employees should just be limited to the TSP program. All right, let's see here. Okay, so next question is, almost every asset class has been down for the year, with the exception of the US dollar, which is up nearly 17% when measured against a basket of other currencies. Alex, what do you think's going on?
Well, it's complicated, but I'll try to explain a couple of big reasons why fairly quickly. The first reason is that basically the whole world economy runs on dollars, and to put it bluntly, this has allowed for a long time the United States to behave very badly from a fiscal and monetary standpoint, and only suffer really minor problems as a result of it. So like 87% of global trade is done in US dollars. Nearly all of the global energy trade is done in dollars. And when you're in a world where supply chains are breaking down, commodity and energy prices are high, this means countries have to acquire more dollars. And in order to acquire more dollars, they usually have to spend their own currencies to get them. But everybody's trying to do this at the same time. And so demand for dollars from all these big trading economies has increased as they're trying to get, well, not just trading countries, but energy importers, food importers, all these things take dollars to buy, and you have to have them. And everybody's trying to outbid everybody else for these now increasingly scarce or more expensive assets. And so everybody's got to get dollars. And so the United States can print money, and everybody just has to keep acquiring it. So we get inflation, CPI anyways, in the 8% range. And then you look at like a country like Turkey, for example, that's like 10 times that high in inflation. Another aspect to this, though, is the Federal Reserve. Obviously, everyone knows they've been raising interest rates. And if you've never heard the phrase before, we have a fractional reserve banking system. Money is created in large part through lending. So when a bank lends, they increase, at least, on paper, the amount of money in existence. So for those at home, if you don't understand what I mean, it's, let's say you've got $100, you have to keep $5, but you can lend out the rest. So you lend out 95. Now you get to say you have $100 in assets on your balance sheet, but somebody else got $95 that they can spend on whatever. This kind of cancels itself out, obviously, because $95 they have is a liability to you, but that keeps money moving around in the economy and helps create money and generates inflation. So when you raise interest rates, people borrow less and banks lend less. That's less money floating around. So even within our own economy, dollars become a little harder to come by when they raise interest rates. So a combination of those two things has had a big effect on why the US dollar has done well against, the euro, the pound, and, other currencies. Hopefully I didn't get too technical, so I'm just going to drop it there.
Well, I think you covered it pretty well, Alex. I guess I'll just mention the terms strong and weak dollar really only exist when you compare it to other currencies. You have to have another currency for one to be weak, and you have to have another currency for one to be strong. It's kind of like walking into a room and saying, oh, it's hot in here. Well, compared to what? A freezer, a sauna. So there needs to be a reference point, and it's no different with currencies. So right now, the dollar is strong, and it's becoming stronger relative to other foreign currencies, mostly because, like Alex mentioned, the Fed is controlling the interest rates. The Fed right now is raising interest rates. And when you raise interest rates, it increases the yields on government securities, making them more attractive to foreign investors. And these foreign investors will exchange or sell their low yielding currency in exchange for US dollars to buy our government securities. And the higher demand for these US government securities increases the value against the foreign investors' home currency. So it's kind of like if Alex had a bunch of milking cows and I had a bunch of pigs, and he's getting a lot more milk for his milking cows these days. So I'm going to sell some of my pigs, thus decreasing the value in the overall market. And I'm going to go buy some of his cows, thus increasing the strength of the cow in our make-believe economy. So that's kind of what's going on with the dollar.
It seems insane that the dollar would be so strong when our economy seems to be weakening. But just like Einstein's theory of relativity, the dollar's value is relative to everybody else's currencies, as these two gentlemen have already alluded. If you think of the U.S. economy as being a leaky canoe, floating through the ocean, you have to imagine that every other developed nation in the world's economy is like a piece of driftwood that their own economies are clinging to for survival. So relative to the driftwood, the leaky canoe actually looks pretty stable and looks pretty valuable in the world economy. It was interesting. 11 years ago, I was trekking through Cambodia, and I was in the capital city of Phnom Penh, and I was shopping for gifts that I was going to bring back home. And I had gone to the ATM machine, and I had gotten some dollars out, and I went to the local bank and I got some Cambodian Khmer Rial, which is their currency. But the gifts I bought were more expensive than the real I had, but I had American currency as well. And I asked the woman, I said, you wouldn't happen to have any American dollars? And she reaches into her brassiere and she pulls out this huge wad of $20 bills. And while I was in Indochina, I was impressed by the vast number of merchants in the marketplaces who preferred American dollars to their own currency. The reason why is because if push comes to shove, the US dollar's got the Department of Defense backing it up. Whereas some of these other countries, that's not necessarily true. I think you'll find that whenever there's world uncertainty, the American dollar gets stronger because as bad as we perceive things are here, we are so much better off than the rest of the world. And right now, the world is looking at some pretty serious situations in the near future. And America just looks a lot safer in relative terms.
Joe stole all my thunder. Is that compared to what? Everybody thinks America has its issues, but if you look around, the rest of the world has issues. Is that capital flows to where there's liquidity and rule of law. You're not going to get that in China. Liz Truss over in England, on a bipartisan consensus that she put forth one of the worst policy proposals ever seen by Parliament, and everybody just evacuated the pound and flowed into U.S. dollars. People think the U.S. economy or the Federal Reserve is probably going to do a better job at combating inflation because the U.S. has one of the biggest consumer populations relative to the rest of the world. And when Fed policy is designed at controlling how much people consume, their policies are probably going to be more effective than other countries with older populations that don't consume as much. So you have to look around, and if you think things are bad in the U.S., they're worse other places. So capital is flowing to the U.S. And if you don't believe that, this is why people watch currency so closely. It's because the proof is in the pudding. If you want to know where people think rule of law is the best and has the best chance of surviving all this bad stuff that's going on in the world, watch currencies, because that'll tell you where people are hiding their assets.
Tom, is that we take free speech for granted. It's so ubiquitous in the United States, and as we talk about censorship from Twitter and Facebook on public discourse, but alternative forms of information are everywhere in America. Every morning I listen to an alternative radio station for the news, and that's when I come in all fired up and chit chat with you about what I just listened to on the radio. That's not necessarily true in other parts of the world. Just go north into Canada, and even though people kind of look like us and they talk like us, and their stores and their cars look like ours, they don't have the same free speech that we do, and it really has an impact on things. And I think that if nefarious things are going on in the United States, eventually it's going to come to fruition because one of these alternative media sites will bring it to light. But that's not necessarily true in the rest of the world. That has an impact negatively on their own currencies.
Okay, well, we have a little bit of time, so we're going to move on to the lightning round. First question, PayPal released a policy statement telling its 429 million customers they would be fined $2,500 anytime they expressed what the company thought was misinformation. The policy was immediately walked back, with PayPal stating that was just an error on the part of the company. Would you own shares of PayPal after this incident?
So I'll just leave aside the very, communist Chinese social credit score kind of system that it seems like PayPal is interested in creating for its user base. But right now, just taking a cursory glance at its price earnings ratio, it looks like it's in the low to mid 20s, which for those out there who are wondering, if it's a PE ratio in the 20 to 25 range, seems to suggest that something is accurately priced. The share price is. In addition, they just had their first negative quarter, first unprofitable quarter since I think 2014. press is bad and competitors are popping up left and right. Google Pay, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay. Doesn't seem that hard to create these. Venmo is another one, Facebook. So right now, I wouldn't be surprised to see if PayPal was a little bit oversold and bounced back a little bit, but I don't think that there's explosive growth ahead for PayPal.
Why can't companies just do what they're good at and shut up? It's a real bummer that a company like PayPal went and did this, because I really like PayPal. And I think that being a digital money platform exchange between merchants and consumers worldwide is a great idea, and has great benefits for the world. Then they go and do something like this, and basically their stock tanks. If I were investing like Warren Buffett, and kind of like Alex mentioned, it has great value. I think it's a good company. It's currently trading below its 2020 low, actually. So I think it's a good deal for what it's worth. But gosh, it's going to be volatile if they continue to do stupid stuff like this.
I think that the pendulum is flung way too far over to the woke side, and I think the consumer base is starting to say, I think you've gone a little too far, and this is Wall Street basically telling PayPal that this was a bridge too far for you. The answer is to your question is, would that affect my ability to, or my willingness to use PayPal? Absolutely. And evidently, it's also having that impact on at least some of their consumer base who feel exactly the same way.
I'll agree with Drew. Some companies, I don't think everybody needs to be political. I mean, it's like at some point we just need people to do stuff without, giving us an opinion. So it is kind of disappointing. All right, next question is that Pit Viper sunglasses have grown into a small but boisterous player in the sunglasses market by selling their 1980s inspired glasses. The company reported $40 million in revenue and sold 690,420 pairs of these sunglasses already. Would you buy the sunglasses? And I think I sent you a picture of it.
Yeah, so I think they look pretty cool. The company that makes them, though, does not like the fact that the Pit Vipers have become kind of a minor symbol of the alt-right and right-wing internet trolls. So they're kind of feuding with, the oppressive white male Christian segment of American society. So maybe I'll just buy the cheap knockoff instead. But yeah, otherwise they're pretty cool.
Gosh, these are everywhere. The trail running community, the mountain biking community, it's like everyone is wearing these sunglasses now. So yeah, they are trendy. They do look pretty cool, but I don't consider myself very cool. I've been wearing classic Ray-Ban Wayfarers my whole life, so I'm not going to buy them myself.
Iridescent sunglasses just don't work for me. The answer is no.
Contrary to Drew, I consider myself extremely cool, and if I was more of an athlete, I would definitely buy these, especially for $100. It's not that bad for sunglasses. So yes, I would wear them. I think they look cool. All right, we have about a minute 30 left here. So let's say last question is: the Wall Street Journal ran an article stating that winning a Nobel Peace Prize takes as much luck as it does talent. Alex, you got about a minute. You got about 20 seconds to answer this question. What do you think?
Sure. So I think luck, I like the definition of luck that's just preparation meeting opportunity. So I guess sometimes very talented people fall into the right opportunity and they end up winning a Nobel Prize. I guess sometimes people don't, and sucks for them.
I think fortune favors the bold. When you put a group of people that are up for Nobel Prizes, I think that they kind of create their own luck in that sense.
I think luck goes to those who are politically well connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And some of these, I think it's a little bit more than luck. I mean, they work hard, they follow scientific method, but your grant gets funded and some other people's don't, and you end up doing the research and other people don't. So I think luck plays a part of it, but I think hard work, scientific method, all that plays a part of it too. So, all right, well, that's been it for episode 57. We'll do this again next week. Thank you.